Hi, my name is Wayne Jones. I'm the CEO, Administrator, Ethics and Compliance Officer of the Palm West Surgery Center. I just wanted to go over a little bit about the career, which is a bit different than what most people follow in the medical profession. I'm going to talk more about the executive route as opposed to just the clinical route. I'm sure you've already heard a lot from different doctors and their progression through their career. But not too many people talk about the executive side of things and what we do and how it's handled. Most of you have probably heard what a CEO is of a business, of a corporation or a company. Well, the same thing really does apply to healthcare. To give you an example, in the profession of a executive leadership position, when you look at a hospital or any facility, there is someone who is responsible for making sure that the medical staff is credentialed, have all the qualifications to do the job that they're doing in the specialty they're doing. There's also this person who is making sure that you have the equipment available. Do you have the right x-ray equipment? Do you have the right MRI equipment, the monitors, the beds that you see in a facility? There's also the budget side of it. The business side of it. As in any business, you have to look at are you financially viable? And making sure that the people that you hired are doing the job that they're supposed to do through their training and education, who's taking care of patients. After all, the biggest difference between the medical profession and any other profession is that you're dealing with people's lives, their livelihood, and their future in a sense of health care. And our job in the medical profession is ensuring quality of health and that we're giving the best care possible under the circumstances. As far as the profession is concerned, I can talk a little bit about myself, which basically follows the lines of executive leadership, which starts off as when you come out of college, and I'll start with college because you do need to have at least a college degree to meet the minimum standards for any job interview. And you can go into a management role within a department. It could be such as biomedical, it could be materials management, it could be managing different units. Many people also have a clinical background who also go into this profession, such as nurses, and they have a bachelor's degree. From there, if you really want to move to the next level, it does require a master's degree. A master's degree separates you from the leadership and the management perspective. What do I mean by that? The manager is one who's going to manage the unit or the floor who reports to someone who's in the executive leadership position, a director, a chief operating officer, someone like that. So if you want to really move up into the profession, it does require a master's degree, although a bachelor's with experience does count. Bachelor's with experience does count. But if you're going to really move up into the CEO levels, it does help to have a master's degree. After all, you have to be prepared for the profession. When we talk about what inspires one to want to do something like this, as opposed to, let's say, being into the clinical side of things, I would say for me, I guess as kids or children, I kind of started out because someone brought me a microscope. I got interested in science. Then you get a chemistry set, from your aunt, your uncle, your mother, someone like that. And it kind of inspires you to want to go more into the sciences. What also helps is that once you get into the college, then you start wondering how things are done, the physiology of things, the business side of it. I always had an interest in wanting to know that when you go into a hospital, and I spent a lot of time in a hospital because I had sick parents and I was in the emergency room, how did this all come together? Who orders the equipment? Who's making sure things are better for the patient? And that's where you start getting into the executive side of things because you have really a teamwork that takes place. When I say a teamwork, certainly you have the physicians, you have the nurses, you also have the technicians. But someone has to make sure that they have the tools necessary to get the job done. So what inspired me to go into this profession was to take on the more business aspect of it because I enjoyed working with the surgeons, I enjoyed working with the nurses. You're working with a high quality team. You're working with the aides, all coming together for one purpose, which would be the patient, making sure they're taken care of. But someone has to make sure that the equipment and the qualifications are being met by there. So what inspired me in my career was because I observed all of this and I wanted to go further and learn more and get involved. The scope of the job or the daily typical activities of the job, I can tell you one thing for sure. I've been doing this for over 30 years. There's not been not one day that I've ever been bored. You get an opportunity to see the latest equipment that's out there. You get to learn the latest technology. During COVID, we've all seen how important it is to be diligent, to keep working towards a common goal, which is to make it better. And that's what we've been doing. What scope of the job does entail making sure that you've vetted, or should I say you've checked out the qualifications. And my typical day may be a physician who wishes to apply for privileges. And I have to make sure that they have done cases like that before, that they have the background, that we're doing a thorough background check. For nurses, it's pretty much the same thing, making sure that they have the qualifications and experience to do the job and the education. They're licensed to do what they want. And that's making sure that's just the staff part of it. But it's also the equipment side of it. I could tell you that it involves millions of dollars, that it involves making sure that you test the equipment to make sure it's proper and correct for what you need to do. And so my typical day may be making rounds, saying hello to everyone, talking to the patients, meeting with the physicians, knowing what it is that they need to get their job done as well, and making sure that the inspections of the equipment, that everything is up to date. If I had to go through a timeline as to what it took from the beginning to get to where you are right now, it depends on you and your pace. If you're going through college, that's great. After college, if you decide to pursue a master's degree, which could be either in public health, you could work for the government and other areas. It could be with MBA. There's no real strict part as far as being engaged as far as your master's degree, but it should have somewhat of a concentration in healthcare because it gives you a better way of being able to speak to your colleagues and understanding what they're talking about. As far as a timeline is concerned, after you complete your college, which is typically 4 years, could be 5, then you're going for your master's, which takes 2 years. But there is a very important part to all of that I want to share with you. It's also, if you're going to involve yourself in pursuing your career, it's really great to pursue looking at an internship or doing volunteer work. And I want to go into that into a little bit detail because this is extremely important as far as career is concerned. I did volunteer work in the hospital twice. And in doing so, I got a better understanding of what was involved in interacting with the different clinical services. It helped me to relate to those people. I was able to understand how does the items go to the laboratory, what happens in an emergency department, moving patients to the floor, food services, housekeeping, infection control. I learned all of that during my training there. As far as volunteer shirt, and the important part with the volunteer shirt, being a volunteer that I wish to explain, is that you get to meet people who will encourage you. You begin to interact with them. I once said, and it wasn't me who made the statement, that it's not who knows you, but it's not who you know, but who knows you. And the reason I say something like that is because you get to meet people who are going to write letters on your behalf, who's going to sponsor you, help you to move forward in your career. So it's okay if you know someone, but the thing about it, if they know you, they're your cheerleaders. They're wanting you to move forward and do things. And the best way of doing that is getting into doing some volunteer work. Is doing that and getting into a mentorship. And I do want to explain something a little bit different between being the volunteer to being the sponsorship and the mentorship. As you volunteer, you get to know people, which may lead into an internship program. I've done 2 internship programs. And with that, I began to move from a manager to an executive leadership. I began to learn what budgets were looked at. I began to know about materials management. I began to learn the different types of nurses and the different types of specialties. That's all during the internship. But what is really nice is if you enter into a mentorship or even a sponsorship. And I want to explain the difference. So with being a mentor, you're helping others to teach, or they're teaching you the different ropes. But if you're going to have a mentorship or internship along with a sponsorship, what is the difference? The difference is that with a sponsorship, someone is helping, believes in your abilities to do better. That's what a sponsorship is like. That means that someone is investing the money, and usually that could be in the form of an internship. So you're doing both. You're learning as well as getting paid for it. and that exists out there. It exists in many large companies, healthcare companies, or even other types of businesses where you can begin to experience the interactions while also getting paid for that. So what you really want to do is to look at volunteer to learn. That may lead into an internship. And with the internship, you can have a sponsorship that someone recognizes your abilities. During my internship, and just to talk about my degree, I have a degree from Columbia University. And I was able to get an internship that was a paid internship. So in a sense, that meant that the place that I worked at believed in my capabilities to lead into leadership. By working through that 1 year of my internship, I was able to prove myself and then subsequently was hired. And I began to move from one level to the next level, which could be from a manager to director to an associate vice president, and there are different titles for each one, chief operating officer, and you could also lead up into being a CEO. So that timeline, just to summarize it, is basically 4 years of college, let's say 2 years of a master's, and then look for an internship and you begin to move on from there. If you're looking at the potential income, I know everyone is always interested in what the potential income is. To try and put it in perspective, there is a very broad range as far as income is concerned. If you start out with a master's degree with some experience, it will typically be around the six-figure range, not to give too much of it exact. So yes, it could be 80, 90,000, 60,000, 100, 110 in the bachelor's realm. If you go for a master's degree, you're talking about six figures plus. To give you an example, some CEOs of large healthcare corporations, their salary could easily be 10 million, 20 million plus bonus and investment. It just really takes off from anywhere to just below six figures to how large the company is and how many employees it has and how many hospitals is involved. It could be into the millions of dollars. I would say the typical salary of an executive in a leadership position, CEO or administrator, would be in a six-figure range along there. But you do have to grow along and do that internship, get your master's degree, and move up there. Not that you don't have, it's not that you have to have it, but it will command a certain amount of respect that you do have it. So you want to make sure that you have at least the minimum qualifications to be able to do the job that you do. And one little other important point is that you always want to prepare yourself for the next level. Do not just expect that people are going to offer you a job. Get people, again, as I stated earlier, is who knows you. Interact. Use that network so that when an opportunity comes, you're already prepared for it, not expecting for it to come to you. And that's what a lot of people make a mistake at. So just be prepared for the next level. Resources as far as financing, I already talked about that. Scholarships and mentorships. I did talk a little bit about that already, and it's important to send your resumes out. To give you an example, next week I will be interviewing students on behalf of a scholarship fund, some entrepreneurs who will be giving out, there's 150 applicants for about 30 positions who will be giving out scholarships to students. They're there, you just have to search for it, and that'll help pay for your education. So don't expect it to come to you. Go out there and seek it. And that's what really leadership is going out there and seeking the opportunities, whether it's in the business realm, and that's going to be within your life as well. As far as work-life balance, I truly, truly enjoy what I do. There's not a day that I come to work that I don't look forward to interacting with the patients, interacting with the physicians, the nurses, the staff, the technicians, all of them, and speaking with them. So the work balance is that I feel satisfied at the end of the day on the projects that we work on. It's a teamwork, bringing them together and making sure you're moving forward. So after that, then yes, I do enjoy my evenings home with the family, having dinner, and on weekends, yes, you do enjoy it. You work hard, so why not play hard too to enjoy your resource, what's available to you. So just in some closing advice, it's a very rewarding career. Seek out those who are willing to help you as a mentor. Don't be afraid or shy. Make the effort to want to grow yourself. Make the effort to get the education to finish the schooling. Don't just start and stop. The rewards are really tremendous. You may not make as much in the beginning, but you begin to move up faster as you begin to know people and they begin to recognize you and will help you along your career path. So, as far as being in executive leadership, it's a very, very rewarding career. You get to work with some very intelligent people, some very dedicated people, highly qualified individuals from the front line of registration to the end line of performing surgery. And at the end of the day, you see a patient who leaves here better than when they left. Thank you.